Today we're talking about why so many INFJ women worry about being too cold-hearted. See, it's not that INFJ women have more struggles in life than INFJ men. INFJ men have their own set of unique challenges, but this issue of being cold-hearted is really something that is a big problem for INFJ women because it is something that society doesn't accept. Right? Being a cold-hearted man is a lot more accepted than being, a cold-hearted woman. And then you might say, okay, but INFJs aren't that cold-hearted, right? We're not talking about NT types, right? We're not talking about ENTJs or INTJs. But the point is this, types that are thinkers by default don't worry about this so much as feelers do. And us types that have FE as like a second function, we're really in this in-between place where this is causing us a lot of problems. Because believe it or not, what we actually do is we overcompensate. Because you might say, yeah, I'm trying to be so kind to everybody. I'm trying to be such a good person. But that's actually the problem. You'll see when we get into the topic today how much this fear of being judged as cold-hearted, how much we judge ourselves as being cold-hearted is keeping us back, and how we can reverse this whole thing, how we can accept this cold-hearted part of us as strength, as something that will push us forward, and that we accept that this cold-hearted part of us is something just as lovable as everything else. Before we get started, remember, if you haven't done this so far, to download the poster on the 5 pillars to an INFJ epic life. And if you want to take it to the next step, then get the INFJ epic life audio guide. All the information you find in the links in the description. So this issue of being cold-hearted has actually been one of the biggest challenges in my life. And it has actually been the catapult that made me really transform my life. And through working with so many INFJs throughout the years, and of course women, I recognize that this is something that probably 95% of every INFJ woman that I've talked to has struggled with. It's not that we put it into words directly, but it's something that shows up in all of our decisions and in all of our relationships. So let's take it from the beginning. Why does an INFJ feel like they're cold-hearted? It has everything to do with our cognitive functions and the fact that we are, introverts with those cognitive functions. Meaning, if you look at an ENFJ and an INFJ, same cognitive functions, but INFJs are introverts, and our introverted functions are NI, introverted intuition, and TI, introverted thinking. The ENFJ, on the other hand, same functions, same introverted and same extroverted functions, but they're extroverts, meaning they by default lean into FE, extroverted feeling, and extroverted sensing. So, of course, our core is cold because it's not like we can't have internal emotions. Of course, we also have access to our shadow functions and, introverted feeling. And of course, we have feelings all together. But when it comes down to it, we're really logical beings. We have this core in ourselves that is all about a gut feeling. That's all about vision. That is all about intuition. And that doesn't really involve any kind of judgment either. It is really just observation and seeing the world in a very particular way. That is the reason why we're actually so open to a lot of people, why we can accept people, because we can very often understand the situation from their perspective without the judgment, without this feeling aspect of, oh, that has an emotional reaction on me. And people who are rather emotional more likely get in a situation where they snap back or where they don't act very kindly towards you. And what does the INFJ do? We actually have understanding for that. We say, oh, that poor person, they are just going through something. And that's why, they're experiencing life this way. And I'm going to be the bigger person. I'm going to help them. And this is something that INFJ women fall prey to even more because of those social norms of, I have to be either the damsel in distress, I have to be vulnerable, I have to be loving, I have to be kind. And because we very often, when it comes down to it, don't feel like that inside, we're not allowing ourselves to do the things others are doing. I mean, just think about the example I just mentioned. If a person was all emotional and was all vulnerable, we are allowing them to snap back. We're allowing them to protect themselves. But when are we protecting ourselves? Barely ever. The INFJ is known to be a martyr. That means you protect others before you protect yourself. Why can we do this? Because we think others need more protection than we do, emotionally, right? We're good. We are mentally strong. We can make it happen. And so we really get to a place where we overcompensate. We don't give ourselves the right to say, no, I'm going to protect myself first. Why? Because if we would do that, we would actually face the judgment that we have been having about ourselves all along, which is, I'm cold-hearted and I only think about myself. So if you think about it, this is a vicious circle and it holds us back so often because it's not just something that holds you back when it comes to, a certain relationship. It also holds us back in how we live our life. Because if we would allow ourselves this, let's say cold-hearted part of us that is in the end strength, we would actually be able to push ourselves way out of our comfort zone and create something amazing. I mean, think about, a ruler in some kind of movie, or I give an example of a leader that has been appreciated a lot. That person is not somebody who's all vulnerable. That's not a person who's all emotional. Actually, there is a coldness to that person. And because of that, people trust you. People want to be under your wings, right? This is part of good leadership. And I'm not saying INFJs have to be leaders in general. I mean, of course, we all should be the leader in our own life and of our own life. But think of it, the fact that a part of us is cold is actually a strength. It allows us to be fair. It allows us to be, giving and kind and not to snap if somebody comes at us from a perspective of, you hurt my feelings or you did something that makes me uncomfortable just by you being yourself, and we snap back. So there is love and there's kindness through that combination of functions and through that combination of showing up in the world. But we first have to accept it. So if you are like me, and as I said, a lot of INFJ women that I've talked through over the years and that I've worked with over the years have shown this to me, this aspect of being cold-hearted is something that holds us back a lot. Because you can integrate it. You can say, yes, I am all of these things, and to look for role models. I always love to think about Wonder Woman or that queen from, Game of Thrones, the blonde one. I always forget her name. I've never really watched the series so much, so please excuse me. But the essence of it, there's a strong female who is being loved and being appreciated because she has the strength to her. And that is something that we have to see as part of who we are and not as something to be ashamed of. And that changes absolutely everything. Because if you're in a place where you haven't accepted it, what happens? You end up with people who are not giving you the appreciation that you deserve. Because all you're focused on is they need me. They are not well. They need me to be kinder. I need to give 70% and I allow them to give me 30 because, I'm the colder one. They are the ones who need my appreciation. And what are you teaching people with that? You're teaching people with that you don't deserve to be protected, that you don't deserve to be respected and valued. Of course, it comes from a place of good intention. I'm not saying it didn't. It was the same for me. And I'm also not saying that this is something that is easy because, again, I've been there. I know how scary it is. Because once I accepted this part of me, I was completely in this understanding of, okay, that's it. Nobody's ever going to love me again. Nobody's going to want to protect me in any kind of way. Because now I'm not this fragile, innocent thing that deserves to be protected. No, I'm now this cold-hearted monster, and who would want to have that? But for me, it really was that I had no other choice. I just had been pushed so much to the corner that I had to break out and I had to say, I have to do this. This is very similar to, what we talked about in the last video, that I got into a place of being independent, that I said, no matter what, even if this is who I am, I need to love myself first. I need to make that happen. And so, believe it or not, you end up with people who are mean to you. You end up with people who are not appreciating you. And the list goes on and on. Because again, you don't feel you deserve to be protected. But if you get to a place where you say, no, I'm going to look for new role models. I'm going to look at maybe movies. I'm going to look at, music stars. I'm going to look at characters from movies. I'm going to look at spiritual archetypes. I'm going to allow myself to embody this part of me as well and to see it as something beautiful. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to protect that. I'm not going to put myself in some kind of place where I think others need more protection than me. I am the biggest gift of my life. I want every single one of you to know that, right? You are the biggest gift of your life. And with that, you need to make sure that you protect yourself. That is the only way you are going to teach people to protect you as well, right? We very often go to this place of, I want others to get it by themselves. Why do we do this? We do this because then we don't have to demand it for ourselves, right? And it would be this external confirmation that in the end you are a good person. That's why we overextend ourselves, why we're being martyrs, why we're being so overly kind, right? Because if somebody else tells us and shows us through their action that, oh, you really deserve to be loved and you really deserve to be appreciated, we would feel better about ourselves. But this is backwards. It is exactly the opposite of what we have to do. We have to first say, how would I act if I felt that I am just as lovable as everybody else? How would I act if I start appreciating myself? And that comes from a place of saying, yes, I have this coldness to me, and that is a strength. Because of that, I can be a lioness. Because of that, I can be a powerhouse. Because of that, I can do exciting things in my life. And that is something that is worth being appreciated for. And I am kind, but I'm not going to overextend myself. And I'm going to make sure that from now on, every person that I newly meet and every person that is already in my life has to make sure that I'm good. And I'm okay if others think that I'm cold. I'm okay if other people think that I'm too strict with them. Like, I've had this experience with my father actually, and it was years ago, but it was a point where he was constantly nagging me, and it had nothing to do with me, of course, but it was something that I was so used to. And once it really got to this place where I said, I don't want to hear it. I let you think what you want about your politics, like whatever you want, like that's your thing. But what I'm not going to accept is that we have this kind of, disharmony in our relationship. Not going to happen. And of course, his first reaction was, you never accept any criticism. You are, like oversensitive, like all of these things. That is something that we have to deal with. If you want to change relationship dynamics that are already existing in your life, this is going to happen. You're going to have those uncomfortable conversations. But then the person recognizes, okay, well, this is just part of who she is. I can either accept it or not. And if you don't budge, if you say, no matter what, I'm going to make sure I feel good. I'm going to make sure that I deserve people to be kind to me, and kind in a way that I need it, not the way they interpret kind. And I'm going to demand this. And you're not forcing anybody to stay in your life. You're saying just, this is who I am, this is what I need, and this is what I deserve. And people can then decide, are they going to adapt to that, or are they going to leave you alone? And you'll see most people will actually adapt to it, but it really takes those uncomfortable conversations. It is a lot easier with new people that you meet in your life. So that might be a way to start practicing it. But if you have certain patterns in your life of always being around people who, take advantage of you, who are not kind to you, who sort of like give 30% of kindness and goodness towards you and you're giving 70, to reevaluate what's been going on and to make those shifts happen. And they all start with you being okay that other people think that you're, cold-hearted, that you're selfish, that you're not, the typical image of a woman of how they would want you to be. Because remember, every single person has a different, understanding of what that should be. I give you a quick example with my father, who's an ENTP, right? What's the dual to an ENTP? An ISFJ. Very often we had this issue when I was younger that I wasn't very domestic. I've never been somebody who's all about cooking or, all of these things. And I used to always carry this within me as something that was my fault and something that made me not perfect or that didn't make me how a woman should be. Now it's completely different. Now I know, okay, no. I am an INFJ woman. That is who I am. This is how I live my life. And being this type gives me a lot of strengths that other types might not have. right? And I'm not trying to be somebody else, but I'm okay with not being the perfect image of how, my father used to see me when I was, a kid growing up. I'm okay if there are other men who would want something different from me and I'm just not that person. And for the longest time, I didn't want to admit that. Now it's like really easy. I don't even experience that. When I think of, let's say, my relationship with my father, I in no way experience any feeling of him thinking I'm not, a good mother or a good wife to my husband or anything like this, or a good housewife. Like, it's just not something I think about, because I'm so comfortable with who I am. But it all started with me confronting all of those judgments that I had been carrying within myself. And that's what you have to do. You have to be okay with acknowledging those feelings, with all of those judgments you have towards yourself, whatever they may be, and to sort of lean into this. And if it's hard for you to find appreciation for that part of you, for that more balanced and complete part of you, please look at role models, as I said. Look at characters in movies. Look at some kind of figure in a story. Look at archetypes. Allow yourself to be inspired by that, right? So you find appreciation for who you are. Something that helps you to lean into the person that you authentically are. If you want some more help how to bring that out, then check out the poster. And if you want to take it even further and say now's the time, I'm really going to make the change, then get the INFJ Epic Life audio guide. All the information you find in links in the description. And if you want to watch another video now that is in alignment with today's topic, then watch the video how the INFJ uses their dark side to their advantage.